Elizabeth Fairley and Jo Halliday of Talking Medicines. It is a thrill. It is a true pleasure to have you with us. So yeah, hello.
Hi.
So I guess we'll start with the classic one. How did you find yourself as the founder of a now thriving medtech startup?
Cool.
We'll start with Jo.
I should start and then hand over. You got the two of us, so you got double act, and I think Scott might be lurking somewhere in the audience.
Scott, you're welcome to join anytime.
All three tonight. So yes, how did we get here? I think as founders, we're predominantly female, 2 out of 3, but Scott's also a founder, so we've all come from very different places with our own stories. For me, my background is in marketing, corporate marketing. So I started from university at Coca-Cola and ran the Coca-Cola brand, moved to Grand Met, moved to a number of big brand companies. But then I kind of came into the startup world. And this is actually my 3rd startup. And it was because I met Scott when I was working in an animal health startup that we came up with the idea effectively of looking at why people, when they take their medicines, just don't seem to understand what to do. And now I know that's called adherence. And adherence is that only 50% of people take their medicine. So they either forget, they don't know how to take it, it just doesn't happen. So there's huge wastage. And we could just see an opportunity for better communication between patients in terms of understanding their medicines. We hooked it up with some cool tech. We used augmented reality on packaging, and we really started a business. That business has evolved, and Elizabeth came in 3 years ago. So I'll hand over to Elizabeth in a minute. Really, when Elizabeth came in, we did our pivot towards data, and everything we talk about today is really us as a data tech company. We're scaling a business which effectively listens to the voice of the patient, which I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about. So over to Elizabeth.
Hi, yeah, so my background is life science, and I've always wanted to, get involved in businesses, growing businesses, and I've been fortunate enough to run my own consultancy business for the best part of 10 years, which has enabled me to get involved in a number of startups and spin-outs from Strathclyde and Edinburgh University and Aberdeen, and I think that really enabled me as well to kind of see the world of entrepreneurship, and kind of spurred me on even more to kind of find people that were aligned to my kind of goals and vision in life. And I think finding Jo and Scott was a really good find, in the sense that we are very aligned. We're very passionate about helping people to manage their medicines, and really we're very focused on the patient, and we work very closely with our customers, being the pharmaceutical industry, where we sell data back to the industry to enable them to really understand how medicines are being taken in the real world. So I think I was very fortunate to find Jo and Scott. I think it's we're a good 3. We're very, very different, which is a good thing at times, because we've got different skills which we can help to grow the business, but we are very aligned on our core values, which I think again is a real strength to us as a founding team.
Yeah. And what was the sort of aha moment? I know you guys came together almost over different time periods, but what was the moment where you came up with the idea, the realization that there was a space in the market for the consumer to be heard more within the medical field?
We came up, we started on that, and we've still got the charts that we drew on that first day and of us really saying, we're going to have a pivot here, because we weren't collecting data. We were originally selling patient support programs, and we saw an opportunity for data. We got people as in consumers, to come in and talk to us about their medicines, and we learned a lot. We got pharma companies, contacts to come in and talk to us, and we learned a lot. And then we got a UX expert in who said, I don't really care what you think you're building. Are you building something people want? And we designed boxes in a typical way, white boxes, each designed one to see how similar they were. And Russell, who was involved, he was brilliant at just bringing us together. We then wrote up our kind of roadmap of what we thought we would build. And, you know, Elizabeth was looking today, we found a photo from 2018 of a, you know, a mission statement of where we wanted to be. And we are so, we've done it in a completely different way. And our ambition has grown, is getting bigger by the day, because we see that opportunity is so there. But in terms of what we set out to do, we are absolutely on the same journey. We're doing it in a different way, but we are building what we said we would build.
That's fantastic. I know aligning having different founders that are aligned is a very strong strategy for good growth. You know, you don't want three of the same people running the company. Will make it somewhat redundant. I'd love to jump into, you're now a data startup. And we had a discussion earlier about data for good. Could you explain yourself, or Elizabeth, explain what you mean by that?
Do you want to go, Elizabeth?
I think data for good is an interesting one, and we've done a fair bit of research around data for good, and what we see is that, you know, it's really yet to be defined. So, you know, we also see that there's a space there for us to help to define it. And where we are so keen on data for good is like, so we're very keen on transparency is very important to us. So making sure it's very clear to people how, you know, data is being used. So that's very important. And also it's the giving back. So we don't run a community, so we're not asking people to come in and engage with one another from a one-to-one basis, but we are building a community where we hope that people are coming in and sharing data with us, and we're sharing data back with them that we hope that can help them on their diagnosis and treatment path and management of their diseases. And we're doing that as a wider community with you know, with the regulatory bodies, with the advisory bodies, with the industry, and also we do a lot of work with the healthcare sector as well, and, you know, working with the NHS and private healthcare organisations as well. So I think that's where we see that data for good can play a role for talking medicines. But I think we are very much at the start of the journey, and it's interesting to see how the term is evolving, and how others are defining it as well. Another key point is how you know, say gathering data in a safe and compliant way, and obviously that's very important to us as well, and that's part of our definition around data for good.
If I add to one of the, you know, we want to be a company with impact. We, you know, one of our investors from the last round, Social Investment Scotland Venture Fund, we were their first investment. So it's really important to us that impact is part of what we do. We are a company for profit. We are a company that wants to scale. It's very much a commercial operation, but along the way and baked into what we do, we believe we can do good and we can measure it. And the thing that we can measure is whether people can take control of their medicines or not. And, you know, we have we collect data, but we have two-way dialogue with people, so we can evaluate, you know, are you, because of using some of our tools, can we help you manage your medicines? And that's what we want to give back. We're a company that only collects data, so we're very transparent. That's the only thing we do. It's always aggregated. It's patterns of behaviours we're interested in. We're not interested in individuals. We don't link up in any way to electronic records. Patients tell us what they want to tell us, and we're mining social media. So we're mining the sentiment of what people are saying, but we're very open about it. And it's a huge blind spot for the industry that, you know, the real world evidence around how people take their medicines traditionally hasn't been the focus for the sector. But as people become more empowered, and as, you know, that data has power in itself, it's more and more important to be able to harness it safely for pharma companies. And that's our business strategy.
Yeah, makes sense. And you mentioned around empowering the consumer. I know that's the general almost reason of talking medicines. How important, like you've talked in the past or in previous articles even, about changing the perceptions of big pharma companies and listening more to the consumer. What kind of role, or what needs to change in the space and to allow their perceptions to begin changing?
And I think our role in it is to measure, to be able to give a benchmark. So a pharma company can say, am I getting better? You know, is the patient more confident of me as a company and my medicine? So, you know, our role in it is measurement. We're not the people who are changing that, but our data can enable those companies to be able to listen more. We did a recent survey and we could see that as a result of COVID, a lot of the measures, if you look at an NPS score, they're still pretty negative. As a sector, you know, the industry knows it's got a long way to go in terms of being liked by the everyday person. But during COVID, people got to appreciate the process of clinical trials, the process and the time and the rigor that the companies go through. And we could see movements in measures like transparency, communication, you know, the use of a medicine. So the key measures around corporate pharma we could see had improved, which shows that, you know, movement can happen. It will be slow and it does take time, but if you embrace that patient voice in your strategies, you know, there will be a difference. So we hope we can play a role in that.
For sure. Anything to add on that one, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I think we're seeing differences within the industry. So certainly there's a lot of patient centricity mentioned in, you know, strategy documents and business plans. But I think there is a difference there in some of the way in which some of the organizations are really implementing that, the patient kind of centricity. And I think for us, it's about really engaging with those. And then, you know, we're all going on this journey together and really focusing on having that added value of the patient centricity data and the basic with the other streams of data that are of value to drive the efficiency of drugs.
Makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. I want to quickly say, I see a great question from Margaret in the chat. Could we move it over to Slido? I'll remember that one as well. And hopefully we'll come to you as the event moves forward. We'll move across to customer questions, community questions as the event goes on. And obviously we want to hear your voices. If you include your name, then we'll happily go to you to ask live and get involved in the conversation. And speaking of which, I'd like to quickly move on the conversation to what was it like building a startup within a heavily regulated space, such as medical, with medical data can be really valuable. What have been some of the things you've had to jump through, and how's that been? How you dealt with that challenge?
I suppose for us, we didn't have any choice, as in the sector is regulated, which gives the opportunity, because innovation is hard in a regulated sector, which can be quite conservative. So we embraced it from the beginning. So, you know, our early meetings were with the MHRA, with the regulators. We've embraced the ABPI, who you know, have the standard of behaviour for pharma companies, the BHBIA, who regulate data into pharma. So we've embraced all of them, and we've built a database at the back of our model, which houses records of all the regulated medicines. So we know we're working, you know, at the highest level. We keep our database up to date. We do quality checks. We feed back any errors or any issues. So we embrace working with regulators, and you know, if we want to sell to pharma, they're never going to work with us unless we can tick all of the compliance boxes. So I suppose first on our list was compliance, which is why, you know, it's taken time. It's taken time to build what we have, and it's a huge asset in terms of our database, and we map our patient voice to that database at a granular level by medicine. So doing all of that has meant we've embraced the sector. So it helps us because we see that actually now as an ally. So it will help us on our investment value and our kind of growth. Mm-hmm. Anything else, Elizabeth?
Yeah, no, I think as well as we go global, it's really, we've always had that mindset of thinking international. So we're always looking to see what the regulatory differences are around the world. We look to the FDA as, you know, as the approval of the majority of medicines for the global use, we look to what standards they have in place, and we try our best to kind of align with that. I think what's interesting is going forward is around the regulation of our patient voice data for medicines, and we really want to be at the forefront of that. So it's all the groundwork that we've put in place is giving us a good path ahead as well, of just we're kind of into a new area around that the kind of the processing of that patient data in an ethical and compliant way, and it's great to be to establish all of those relationships as we've gone along.
Absolutely. And being that you're there sort of at the ground floor, at least with some elements of technology, what do you think is going to be possible within this space in the next 5-10 plus years, if we put our future caps on for a moment? Without giving away proprietary secrets, of course.
We'll go where the consumer goes. So we are patient centric, and we will go wherever they go and where they talk about medicines. So we were talking today about the role of voice. Now, right now, voice is talked about a lot in terms of it's lots of press and lots of coverage, but as we all know, it's not a mainstream activity yet. But we know, for example, older people will be using voice assistants to help them manage their medicines, and that may give us a data stream that we don't even look at the moment. So we will be guided, we will look to the technologies that consumers are using, so whether that is augmented reality, whether that's virtual reality, whether that's voice, or whether it's text mining, which is where we are at the moment. We need to be pretty open-minded and agile in terms of embracing it, but we take our clues from people in terms of what they're doing, and that tells us the surfaces we need to go to be able to capture the data about how they feel about their medicines. So it's quite exciting because it could go in all sorts of directions.
We're always on the hunt for smart talent. We're always people that are keen to come with us on our journey. We've got a great team, we've got some very, very bright individuals, and I think there's a common strand of innovation in there and wanting to kind of push the boundary, and we're always on the hunt for people that can help us to kind of access that data and thinking kind of ahead, and as Jo says, voice is not there yet, but it's not to say that we shouldn't be starting to look at it.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm going to quickly open this up a little further. I've got someone else, another fantastic member of our team, Emma Lodell. She wants to be involved in the event. I'm very keen to get her involved in this event. So Emma, I know if you're here, I'd be keen to have you on the call.
I'm here. Can everybody see me?
Good.
Thanks, Jo and Elizabeth. It's great to see how you just, the most difficult thing for MedTech is data, and you've gone straight into the deep end with that. I was wondering, in terms of the last kind of 3 months, when everything's kind of gone up in the air, I know a lot of companies, it's actually accelerated kind of the progress they wanted to make with data, or do you think it's kind of you've had to change your business roadmap, going into things like the tracing app, like how has that affected what you had planned in January?
It's accelerated everything really. The value, the thing for us is product market fit. How valuable is our data, and the value of that data has gone up because it's so clear. There's been about 1 billion conversations of COVID, and there's so many clues within that. And we've done our own work on COVID. Partly training, we're training our AI machine effectively at the moment. So we've used COVID because it's very rich in terms of the dialogue people have been talking about. We're training at the moment on heart disease, which is very closely allied to COVID because of a lot of the secondary and the other complications that people have. So it's given us a really rich data stream to capture and train against. We believe that the sector is changing quite rapidly because, pharma is a traditional industry, but they've had to go online, as we all have with Teams, all the things that would have been impossible 6 months ago, which then opens up opportunities. They've had to pull all their reps off of the road, and that is, 2/3 of their spend is on face-to-face with doctors. So they've got to think, how do I actually get that messaging across? And our patient insight can support doctors, in terms of understanding the target profile. So we think, as a business, it's been difficult because we've all had to work from home, but actually as a tech company, it doesn't make that much difference. We're all healthy. So, whilst it's a difficult time for everybody, for talking medicines, it's probably propelled us even faster and made us realise we're keen to get to North America. We're keen that, we're a global company. We're already spending a lot of time in London, but actually Global Meds are based, primarily in North America and Europe, in Switzerland. So it's made us, post-COVID, maybe communication is actually easier because there's so much that's virtual, but we certainly are riding the wave of the changes that will be coming out the back of it.
Yeah, and maybe hopefully they'll create some more loopholes for things like this to kind of go even faster, all these medical requirements. And Elizabeth, I know that you've got a PhD. I was wondering if you'd found, because I currently work at a startup that was a spin out, and our boss, found that he's actually much preferred the business world to his stint in academia. I don't know if you found the same, or if you found it that kind of complements each other.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed my PhD, and I was very lucky at the LMB in Cambridge, and it was a very entrepreneurial environment. So it was, there was a number of companies that were spinning out. So I think that kind of was embedded within me, or I saw other people kind of spinning out and growing businesses around me, and that kind of sparked interest in entrepreneurship for sure. I think it gives strength. I mean, at the moment we're working on our kind of machine learning and an NLP project, and so it's good to have that depth of knowledge in some of the kind of data processing and the life science side. But I didn't, with regard to kind of going back and working in the lab, I'm kind of glad that I'm not there.
Don't blame you, especially now.
And I do love a business, and that kind of pushed me to know more about how to to kind of live and breathe the commercial environment. And I went out to Boston as a Salter Fellow, and that gave me a really good grounding in an experience in business, and also I think you learn a lot working in a startup environment, because you're working with many companies unfortunately don't make it, and you do learn from some of the hardest times that you experience. So I think there's nothing better than just kind of picking yourself up and going on. But there's similarities to the environments, but no, I'm glad I've made the choices that I've made along my career path.
Absolutely. And this is actually a stat that Johnny has given me, but only 11% of venture fundings went to startups with one female founder just last year. And then as a backed company, majority female, 2 to 3. What was the experience like for you, and what do you think are the key things to change in the medtech space?
It's a difficult one, because raising investment is hard for anybody, whether you're male or whether you're female. And, we hope that ultimately it comes down to your investability and your proposition. But, the stats speak for themselves. There's not enough opportunities. For us, we certainly have benefited from the platforms that are available. We presented last week at the Mayor of London's tech platform for female founders. We were one of 10 companies selected. So we have definitely, Women's Enterprise Scotland, we won their Invested Business last year. So we have benefited from the profile that we can get by, really networking and, the great organisations that support female founders. But, ultimately we're still competing in the same world with everybody else for that VC funding. So, we want to be driven by our commercial proposition rather than who we are. But we think it's a strength having 2 female founders. Diversity, as we said, we've got 3 very different founders, regardless of their gender, just very different backgrounds. So I suppose we put our heads down and do what we can do. We would like to help others in the female network, as others have helped us, because we do think that there is, support is needed, and the more that can be done, the better. So yeah, I suppose we just keep going on that commercial vein, but any network opportunities we would take, and we would certainly want to give back as well, because people have, helped us a lot from that perspective. Elizabeth may have anything else to add.
Yeah, no, to that, I think we're very keen to give back and help where we can, and we've had a lot of help along our journey from men and women, and I think I think it's I mean they're helping us to go that extra mile and to go even faster and be a bit more ambitious and be brave and bold, and we want to kind of help others. I don't think Jo and I think of it with regard to that we're any different. We're just an ambitious founding team that have got we've got big growth plans for the business, very much a global scaling business, and so I think we don't really see ourselves as any different, but I do hear you that there are differences between the evidence kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah, on the evidence side, I think one area as well I'd love to hear your thoughts on is the general investment is one side, but overall there are less women founders than men founders. That's something we'd like to change. Obviously, the equality and the skill level should be at least 50-50, if not perhaps even skewed a time, but the other way. What more can we do within the community and otherwise to promote this idea that that women can start businesses just as much as well as men can, or quite frankly, wherever the background you're from? What changes would you like to see?
Yeah, no, I think that one's probably harder because you don't know the networks that you don't know. And I think at the beginning it is different. It is less equal. We know the VCs we can approach. It's an equal world in terms of who approaches them, not necessarily in terms of who gets funded. But from a females wanting to start up, there's a lot of other things going on. And if you don't know that there's support out there, you don't know where to look. And for me, that's probably the biggest problem, is that people who might have an idea don't know that there's actually others out there. And we know, if you start a business by yourself, it's very lonely. If you don't know any networks, you fail very quickly because you just don't know that you have to just get up and do it again. And I think, there are, with childcare and, Elizabeth and I, we've got lots of children between us. We know the challenges of running, careers and your home life. And I think support is one of the big things, financial support, but also the mentoring and the networks, because you don't know what's normal when you're beginning. And I wish we'd known some of the things that are available. We created a company very quickly, so we didn't go through any startup, any incubation. We just went straight into having a trading company. But actually, we missed out on some of the things that could have helped us along the way, and we've kind of caught up. But I think you just don't know what to look for. So it's how do you get that out there at a grassroots level? And that, a lot of organizations are doing really good stuff. But again, it's just so difficult. The whole returners to work thing, there's a huge opportunity for really skilled females to do startups, but they don't necessarily know or have the confidence to really go for it.
I also think there is many very talented, successful women that are out there that they are very busy. They're very busy and they've been hugely successful. And so in some cases, they're not maybe coming forward in the same way. And we've definitely connected with some of those very talented individuals. And I would, so I think there are successful men and women, but I think you just maybe need to just need to make sure that you can kind of get that access, or you find those talented women, because there are plenty of them, but they're different. And they're different on their approach, and they're different on the way that they run businesses and succeed, but there's very many of them.
I'd like to quickly open up as well. I know we've got Sophie still in the chat. I was wondering if you could weigh in a little bit, Sophie, on your thoughts on women entrepreneurs and women investors and how we can perhaps promote it further.
Sure. So happy to share. I mean, what we see in terms of the healthcare space, this has been, a very male-dominated kind of area in the past. But what we see with digital health, that it is changing incrementally, but it is changing both in terms of the numbers of female entrepreneurs, but also in terms of the numbers of female investors working at VCs. I can't say it's a very fast change, but it's certainly going in the right direction, and it'll be really great to see this continue and to see more of a balance and more diversity in this area.
Yeah, I think right. I think, I think, and we do see that, but we do also see that in some cases we're at events and then, there's more like diversity in the room, and then we realize that we are the only women that are standing up and speaking. So I think, we just need to, I think people just need to keep giving women a chance and supporting them as much as there is men.
Sure, and I think maybe you also need to come to some more SVB events, albeit virtual at the moment. But our events are quite fairly balanced. So in the future, I'm really happy for you to join, especially given that you're in the healthcare space. I'll be really glad to bring you in to those as well.
Great, thank you.
Jo and Elizabeth, and maybe Sophie as well. In terms, you're talking about data for good. You're still figuring it out. Do you have an idea of how you think Scotland and the UK fares and how they're dealing with using kind of medtech and data compared to Europe, for example, or further afield? Is that something you've looked into, or?
No, we can see big differences, and mainly because of consumer behaviour. You've got sites like Patients Like Me in the States, which are huge. People share because they want to help each other. The UK is always more reticent in terms of sharing. We've done our own. I think Elizabeth mentioned we put out a survey basically saying, do you believe in data for good? Would you share your data? And people were not sure. They couldn't define what data for good was, quite understandably. And then we showed them, MedSmart is our app that captures deep data about how people take medicines, and it gives them free support. And we explained in a little video what MedSmart was. Would you download MedSmart? Would you be willing to share your data? And 80% said yes, we would. So to us, a lot of it is about education. You can't just say, we're data for good and everyone understands it. You've actually got to talk to people quite openly about, how data is needed. And I think with COVID, it's certainly, really sped up medical devices. People are calling their doctor, they're doing their prescriptions. So, huge change. But also, if you look at the COVID apps, people are sharing because they genuinely can help each other, because if we can understand all the symptoms far quicker, those solutions will be quicker to market. So I do think that there is a sea change. It's slow, but like most things, it's about communication, because we can't say we need you to manage your medicines better. It's not language people understand. So we need to talk in everyday language, and we need people to come with us on that journey, because they understand that they want to share data, or they're just happy. They don't really mind where the data goes, as long as it's a good thing at the end of the day, and it's helping helping those medicines that go down the toilet, because 50% is just not a good figure.
Yeah. And how long do you think it actually took from the beginning to get enough kind of consumer data, after the initial kind of pushbacks and asking about if people would be willing to share? How long did that process take in order to then, get Talking Medicines going?
We've started with connected devices. So MedSmart is our flagship app, which we run, and we link the barcode. People scan the barcode and they access information about the medicine. They can understand allergies. They can use a digital cabinet effectively to keep a list of their medicines. They can share, and they can keep them for their children or their parents. There's lots of functions within the app. We're now at just under 100,000 downloads, and at the end of the day, we people get confused by their medicines. There is a big market for us there. We've supplemented that with looking at social media, which gives us far greater depth in terms of the data we can capture, but it's not as rich as the connected devices. And by blending the two, we're able to come up with some really meaningful insights. So we've had data from day one. We've never struggled to get data, and we've never struggled to onboard people, but to get the real international scale, that conversational chat is really important to us. And it's just, there's a lot of noise in there. So, the trick now for us is to really train the machine how to get rid of the noise and really listen to the things that matter. So it's not really been a problem in terms of getting data, the curation of it and the scaling of it now that we...
Well, thank you. That's, I'm surprised. I thought the kind of initial pushback would be just getting people to share it.
No, we did talk to people from the beginning, and they were saying help. And pharmacists, we had a piece on the BBC News when we first launched. We haven't even fully built. We had an MVP, and the BBC News picked it up, and we had a feature, and it went into like the headlines, and we just were inundated with people saying, please, can I have that app, because I'm confused by my medicines. So we knew even before we built it that there's an audience there. So it's always been welcomed. And pharmacists and doctors, again, have really helped and endorsed us, because they don't have time to spend a lot of time on co-medications and talking through what's in a medicine and what it's for. So no, the sector has been very supportive.
Thanks.
I think I've noticed now, I see we've got a lot of excellent questions and Slido. The links right there for anyone who'd like to add some more, and obviously upvote the ones you think are really interesting as well. So I'm conscious, we're here to answer the community questions as well. I want to jump in with a few last quick fire ones for myself and Emma, maybe alternate these. If you could possibly try and answer these in 1 or 2 minutes each, just so we can have a quick fire, then we'll jump into the community questions. First one I have for you, and we'll start with Jo. Has there been a time, either with talking medicines or otherwise, where you failed or had struggled with something, and what did you learn for it? Is a quick one.
Often. No lie. No, I think failing is part of it. You just need to learn quickly, and that's advice that gets dished out, but you just need to learn quickly. And if you fail, you need to get up, and investment, you can spend a lot of time talking to the wrong people for a long time, and you could dwell on it, but really you just need to get up and keep going. So I would say failing often is a good thing.
Fantastic. Elizabeth?
Sorry, I just missed the question. I should just
It's dozing off.
But I'm sure Jo answered that beautifully.
Okay, yeah. Quick fire fails. We'll go with next quick fire is, what do we have? Next quick fire, I had them.
Elizabeth?
And
I'll go for it.
Sure.
So Elizabeth, can you hear me?
Yes.
Still with us? Good. Is there any kind of entrepreneurial advice that you hear so often, but actually you just disagree with it completely? Could tell the truth.
Oh God, that's tricky. God, these are hard.
It's a cheeky one for a quick fire. It's a little bit cheeky. We can always come back to it.
Yeah, I think that is tricky. That is a tricky one. What do I hear that I don't like? I might need to have a think about that one. That is one. I don't really, there's nothing really, to be honest. I think if people are trying to help each other, I think one thing that I maybe find that there can be conflicting information, and there can be many people in that space trying to help startup organizations, and it can be quite tricky when you're starting out, and you tend to, you might be led off somebody who, quite easily influenced by who is around you. So I think that I find quite tricky to watch sometimes, because I kind of, it's good to embrace many communities and many startup organizations and avenues to support, to find the right home for you. So I think that's one thing that I probably find, that some people can not find the right home for them, and then be influenced by those people that they've got around them.
Sure. As a next quick one, we'll go back to Jo. Is there a trend or new technology that particularly excites you?
Well, I'm obsessed at the moment with voice because we've been talking
Of course.
just working out how do we get in on that. So I suppose that's my in my head at the moment in terms of, you know, as a technology, how can you harness data from voice?
Yeah, I can add to that as well. I think we're quite obsessed at the moment as well, Jo. I know about predicting. So, you know, that's a hard one for us to solve. So, you know, we don't shy away from difficult problems to try and solve. So that is definitely one that we're trying to figure out how we work through. But it's a difficult one. So.
For sure. And the final one before we go to Q&A, we're going to have Alan, who's our man in our team, lead the Q&A from all you guys. But finally, this one goes out to both of you. Perhaps doesn't have to be quite short. I would like to be remembered as a person who
achieved.
It's
all about delivery at the end of the day, but hopefully delivery with giving back. You know, I think, you know, we're so focused on where we want to go and the way we want to do it. So I want to be remembered as getting there, not wanting to get there.
And making a difference. You know, we really want to make a difference to people's lives, to their quality of life, and we want to do that with the industry, with our healthcare partners, and I think that means a lot to us to make a difference.
I love both of those answers. I think it's a great place to leave off with our portion of it. Might jump in for a cheeky question or two later, myself and Emma. But for now, I'm going to pass it over to Alan, who I believe has queued some questions and knows some people who want to get involved. Alan.
All right. So we had a lot of questions in the Slido, and we're going to start from the top, and it's going to be from David, which I'm going to unmute right now, and he's going to ask the question himself. There you go, David. You with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Brilliant. That was a really interesting talk. So thank you very much for the insights there. I really enjoyed it. But I was wondering, as you're discussing it, there are some of the really big tech giants out there, Google in particular, have their own products using health data and their own projects there. And they've got massive resources. Is that a threat to you, or do you see yourselves as doing things better as a startup or differently?
No, I think it's a really good point. And yes, you know, they are giants, but their weakness is trust. So can they knit together all the different data points? And we've spoken to people within Google who say, you know, yes, they absolutely could, and they could throw words at it, but would they be trusted by the everyday person? Now, as a startup, we will go through many evolutions into whatever size of company we end up, but we've got that trust is ingrained in us, and we're working to a purpose with pharma rather than working to a consumer platform. So, you know, our purpose is to do this. Google's purpose is to do many, many, many things. So yes, there is, you know, and we obviously use a lot of tools from the giants. So there is a partnership, there is a dialogue, but we don't see ourselves not doing it because Google could. You know, at the end of the day, we think trust is the main reason that we can do what we do. And we think it would be very difficult for Google to knit together in the same way.
Yeah. I think there's huge opportunity, and I think that's something as well that I would definitely, you know, we don't shy away from engaging with bigger corporates. I mean, Jo and I both got, and Scott as well, all got experience of working in a corporate environment, and I think that makes, you know, we're really keen to embrace it. You can learn a lot. You know, we're small and agile, and we're kind of nimble, and we know how they work, so we can work together. And you know, as well, competitors are, you know, the other side of that is opportunity. So I think it's good to stay close and to be watching and learning and working together.
Thank you.
Awesome. So the next question would be from Declan, and I'm just going to quickly unmute him. There you go.
Great, thanks, Alan, and thank you, Jo and Elizabeth. Really enjoyed it, and I generally mean it when I say that I might need a new keyboard, given the amount of notes I was taking. Yeah, so with my question, it's something that I thought is always quite an interesting balance between messaging and if you've got an app that, as far as I understand, is B2C focused. How have you found that balance between the value proposition and the outcomes and the problem solving between B2C, which would be the app, and then obviously presenting the data to the companies? Has that been a relatively smooth transition? How have you gone about it?
And I think that it's not, I mean, it's not a straightforward B to C to B, because not all of our data comes from one device. So, you know, our data comes from MedSmart, but it could and will come from other connected devices. It comes from social media. So it's the blending of all of it. So, you know, from an investor point of view, they'll always ask, can you juggle two? Can you do B2C and B2B? We have, and we've learned so much from doing it, because you understand the consumer so much better, and you have to be good at communicating with them, as you've pointed out. So, you know, ultimately, we want MedSmart, we want connected devices. We think that's an important source of our insight, but we've got other ways, and increasingly we'll be looking at scaling those other ways. So I suppose if it were one device and the data is all, it's very linear, whereas ours is not quite so linear. But you know, we think we can do B2C to B, and we think, you know, not all of one lot data goes all the way through. And I think somebody had asked the question about sharing data and, you know, what value that, you know, does that devalue us? At the end of the day, we share data with people that's relevant to them, so patterns of at a simple level, just to give them some kind of feedback. So on our COVID surveys, we were telling people what they were telling us, just because it's fair. They need to see, you know, what am I taking part in? But the data we share with pharma is very different, because it's so aggregated, and it's a, you know, it's a very specific dashboard for them. So the data's not flowing through, you know, in a very linear way. It's going through a lot of different filters. So we've managed, it's quite a unique balance the way that we do it, but we have managed it. So.
Yeah, and it hasn't been easy, I think, as well. Like, you know, I think at the beginning, there was definitely a lot of emphasis on MedSmart and the app, and there was a lot of focus on that. And so, you know, but now, you know, we're seen as a data tech and a growing data tech company, and that, you know, that patient voice data. So I think you do need to need to be mindful of it. You know, I think we could have been very much remained being seen as an app company, potentially more in consultancy. So I think you have to be mindful for that, and you have to, you know, make sure that you are pushing yourself in and making, you know, kind of holding yourself to account. And we've definitely done that, in the sense that we're now, you know, data. I mean, data's always been at the heart of the business, but we've now put it very much at the forefront, so that everybody is aware of what we are doing and where we are going.
Awesome. Let's keep it going. So we had a question at the beginning, which I missed, and I'm going to read out myself because we couldn't get to Margaret at that point. So Margaret was asking right at the beginning of the conversation, do you think sharing your data reduces your investment value?
No. So no. I mean, if anything, I think it has brought investors around us that are more aligned to where we want to go, and more aligned to kind of our goals as founders. And I think that's really important. I mean, we have, you know, as Jo at the beginning, you know, when we began, we looked a lot of, you know, of who our stakeholders, the patient engagement, who we were selling the data to from a pharmaceutical industry perspective, and also engaging with investors. So we've been engaging with investors around the world for a number of years, and I think those are the ones that are coming with us on our journey are the ones that are aligned to what we are doing. So no, I don't think it does detract.
Great.
Right. Jo, are you adding something to it, or should I just move on to the next one?
No, I think that, you know, we share data back to people, and we share data to pharma companies. We're just so aware of the compliance guidelines within the sector that we do it very ethically, you know, very transparently, and you know, that is our commercial model. So yeah, no, it definitely increases our investment value.
Awesome. The next one is our favorite Jude. Jude, where are you? Let's get you unmuted. Boom. There you go.
Hi guys, that was great. Incredibly insightful to listen, and some great points to take away. My question is around co-founders, and I just want to know what advice would you give people if they were looking for a co-founder?
Definitely to have one or two.
Yeah, good number.
The whole one. I can so see how one founder. I read a book about single founders once, and you just think, I just can't imagine how they get up and keep going when you get knocked down so many times. So more than one, definitely. And two would be difficult because you know, 2 50-50. So 3 is a good number. And yeah, you know, it's a really, really difficult one, and quite often you don't necessarily sit there with an interview criteria, but I mean, effectively you've got to live with them, breathe with them, and you know, build a business together. So it would be worth doing that if you are looking. But I think it's the same with investors. Your early investors are going to come with you for quite a long time. So you know, yeah, it's the same. You know, you've really got to want work with the people around you. And I can see some of our investors, I think Connie's in the audience. We love the support that our investors give us. And, you know, having a group of investors who give us that support, that mentorship, really, really helps. And you can't always choose your co-founders or your investors, but at the end of the day, being mindful as to the role they're playing, and particularly as you're scaling, you know, as we get bigger investors on, is really important. But to come back to your question, yeah, no, it is very important to you know, to want to work with your founders, but it's very easy to fall in the trap of just having a founder like you, in which case you don't have diversity and it's probably not the best decision. So, you know, there's a lot of dilemmas about a founding team.
Yeah, and it's not easy, and you know, I think from speaking from, I mean, I ran my own consultancy business, and then I started my own business myself, and I thought, I really need a marketing person in here, and I really need somebody with more medical knowledge. And then, you know, I think it's not easy to find people, but I do think if you can do it with a few others, then that definitely helps you, especially when you know, you have a tough day, and also just how you can go faster because you're combining your skill sets, and so you can solve problems faster, and you can move along the journey faster too. But it's not always easy, and I think as well, realizing people's capacity, you know, kind of, I think Jo maybe touched on this, but you know, sometimes if it doesn't work out, then you know, you kind of have to recognize that sometimes that these things don't work out, and just kind of move on, pick yourself up again, and go again, and just be strong enough to be able to keep going. And yeah, but I do it. Yeah, going alone is a tough journey.
Awesome. Now we're gonna move to Bill, who also has an interesting question for us. There you go, Bill. You there?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Elizabeth, Jo. Thank you very much for sharing your experience and insights. I think they've been very valuable and inspiring to all of us who want to start some business in the future. So my question was about, you know, data usage. You know, we've been seeing many data scandals lately from large names like Facebook and Google, and the way they use the data and they sell the data. So, you know, my question was pretty much how viable can be, you know, in the future, the business model of, you know, selling data to large companies such as the pharma ones, given the, you know, ongoing GDPR constraints that many countries and in European Union and in the US are currently putting for companies. Yeah. And how do you ensure that, you know, your data is not being kind of manipulated maybe from third-party companies, and you are effectively GDPR compliant? Yeah.
No, it's a really, really important question, really good question. And I think we've probably benefited from coming through the GDPR era, because we obviously had to be compliant from the beginning with a more stringent regulation. And, you know, you're going into the States, they're now looking at GDPR as they sort of rack up their requirements. So we will always play by the highest regulation, and be very transparent about everything we do and our terms and conditions and our ethics around it. We don't see it as stopping us, but there may be more regulation, and we will need to embrace and be part of that. So doing it the right way. And obviously from a security point of view, just making sure that we're really bolted down at all times. But we certainly embrace it in terms of the standards need to be there, and they're a good thing. So yeah, we've kind of baked it in from the beginning.
Yeah. And I think as well, like within the business as well, it's important. I mean, we've got our mind, we look and we research and we engage internationally, and to understand those differences from a regulatory perspective. We also, we get help. We've got a good DPO in place as well that can help us, and good advisors that we can gain support on for kind of compliance and ethical issues. But I think as well, it's about making sure that we are mindful of what's going on internally and bringing people in that really understand what we're doing and the importance of our data. And we've kind of baked that in from the very beginning of how we've built and developed as well, and how we're bringing people on board, which is really important, so that, we kind of keep on the right track.
Okay, thank you.
So now I've got plenty of anonymous questions to come after that, but I think I'm going to bring David one more time. He's got a really interesting one. Let me just quickly check if he's still available. David, are you still there? Are you still able to ask your question?
I am indeed. I've taken myself off video for all of your benefits. But I had another question that is more related to the women in tech theme for today, and that's around hiring talent. Have you found hiring the right people beyond your core founder team? And have you had any difficulty hiring women in tech?
Yes, we've had ups and downs like everybody about hiring. We've very successfully hired younger people. We've got some brilliant superstars who come in, after university or in their first years and have done amazing jobs. And, Roma, for example, as a data analyst, has been amazing. And Julie, who's working on our management. So we've had some brilliant females coming in. At a senior level, we've recruited less people just in part of our journey. As part of our journey, our cash burn is obviously very controlled. So, we have limited senior roles. That's where I think it'd be interesting to see what the balance is when we're looking at those senior tech roles, particularly, and something that, we're quite aware of. So I think it is challenging.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd quite like to see more. I mean, we're open. Our recruitment tends to be quite open because we're always on the lookout for smart individuals. So we're always looking for people to help us, especially talented software engineers, data analysts. I mean, that's where we're going. And as our data grows, we need more people that can help us in that space. So I guess we'd quite like to see more women apply. I think that we probably see far more men applying to us for software engineering roles, and so it would be good to see women apply. But I think for us, it's about just getting the very best team. So for us, it's just, and where those are, we're not so, don't mind where they're located. It's more about, we're much more focused on bringing in the right talent and individuals that can grow with us and deliver.
We're pretty 50-50 on our current team between male and female, and Nina, our head of sales, female. We definitely are probably on target from a tech point of view. I think we could do less females, which would be a shame, or we could try to do more to encourage. There could be an opportunity there. So yeah, no, it's a good question.
And sorry, I'm just going to jump in terms of before lockdown, now that you're all working from home, did you have a lot of people working remotely before that? And if you didn't, would you be more open to recruiting kind of tech people that were almost fully remote, whether that could be people working from, further afield? Is that something that you've thought about now that you're all remote, or?
Yeah, no, we've always been flexible, because I think in any tech company you can be pretty flexible. So, but most of us were in the office doing long days every day. And we obviously all went home. But Scott, I think, is lurking around somewhere. Scott's up in Oban, Elizabeth's in Edinburgh, and I'm in Kilmacombe. So we're all kind of around. We've done a survey recently of all of our team to say what do they want, and it is really interesting that they've all come back saying they want hybrid for the future. They've enjoyed working from home. They miss the contact and they want more of it. They're happy with the communications, but they just would like to see people now and again, whether that's once a week, twice a week. But absolutely all of them said hi. So it does, I think there will be a change for us in the way we manage our time. But Elizabeth and I are in the office today, and socially distant. The office is still a good hub to have. You need time with each other. You need to be able to work through things. So I think, ultimately there is a hybrid model that will come through, but it's different. We wouldn't have done that if it hadn't been COVID. And your point about recruiting from elsewhere, Julie went back to Switzerland. We've had one of the techie persons was working in, where was he? Thailand?
Not too far.
He was stranded. So we've had people working in all sorts of places, and it really hasn't made that much difference. So yeah, I think it just makes you be more open-minded, which will help because it means you can really go for the talent rather than the location.
Thanks.
Awesome. So if we still have a few minutes left, I'm going to read some of the anonymous questions. So those are probably from the people who didn't want to really stick out their head and ask those questions. There's one in particular that I found interesting. I kind of want to maybe read it out. What are the risks that you face each day that could destroy the company?
Ooh, you want our risk register?
Quite long.
And we run our risk register, don't we? Whether it's you get investment quickly enough to keep you going, whether we get sales quickly enough to scale us into global, whether we get the tech talent that we need quickly enough to be able to scale the products to get the sales. I think there are many risks, but we generally run a risk register so we can at least put them in order and worry about the top three rather than all of them all of the time. I think in startup you have so many that you could worry yourself out doing it, really, couldn't you?
Yeah. I think constant review and mitigate as much as you possibly can.
Awesome. There's another one here from founding. How long did it take you to become profitable?
We're not there yet. I love the story of 3 years to exit, to become profitable and exit, which is the 8 years is definitely more the thing. So we're still on our journey. We're still in R&D for our bigger scaling products. So that's not yet. We haven't crossed the curve yet. We're still in investment mode. We're raising at the moment. We want to get more investment to go deeper and faster. So that's our chosen curve that we're following.
Sure.
I'd encourage, if I jump in for a moment, Alan, if you want to get some last questions in, we do still have a good list with anonymous, but if you want to come in and ask some of them yourself, it's always good to be able to put a face to a question, get the community involved. And the final thing, I'm conscious of time. I believe we're going to need to let Jo away real soon. I really appreciate having you with us. Maybe we've got time for one or two more. With Jo with us, then we'll still have Elizabeth to answer a few last ones. I'm also aware Zoom fatigue's a thing. So if you need to jump off in the next 5-10 minutes or so, even if you want to grab a beer or wine, refreshment, absolutely encourage it. Back to you, Alan.
All righty. So there's one that asks, what user barriers exist when you're adopting your software?
From a MedSmart point of view, so when people are using our tools.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we we get really broad usage, you know, sort of age-wise. People are always like, oh, people won't use tech. Well, we've got 80-year-olds, 70-year-olds using tech. And, you know, we recently did some work around heart disease, and, you know, nearly everybody who came back, and we were doing all of the recruitment via Facebook, all of them were over 70. And, you know, we get really, really good engagement. So age isn't really a barrier. Gender isn't a barrier, it's pretty even, and location isn't a barrier. We get quite an even split in terms of the way that we can engage with people. So I suppose the barriers for us, the biggest barrier of people coming into our community to share data is the fact we ask them to scan the medicine. And, you know, we have as many medicines as we can get from the regulators in our database, but it's not every single medicine. So we don't let people put their own name for a medicine into the app, because our database would, therefore we couldn't recognize that as a medicine. So that's quite a high barrier for us, but we run a customer services, so we offer to help people. But some people do get frustrated that they can't immediately scan. So the majority of people can. The 1% who can't are the people who put your app reviews, the people who, you know, get frustrated quite understandably. So our biggest barrier to people getting involved with us is tech, in the sense that they either can't find the barcode, or they've managed, you know, their pharmacy has managed to source a medicine from somewhere else. And we're very conscious of working with regulated medicines. So if that answers.
I think so, yeah.
And with regard to customers, I think it's about getting the data in front of the customers early. So it's new, it's novel, it's something different. So you know, understanding what those barriers are, it's good to hear from the customer, so you can work with them to understand what do they really mean, and what is it, how do they really want the data to be shown. So I think, again, just you know, not trying to maybe get the perfect finished piece, and getting it in front of customers early is a good way to go.
All right, so I think there's a question to wrap
Alan,
it up.
can I quickly jump in again? Sorry, I'm being a wee bit cheeky. I noticed a wee question in the chat there. I know we have some great entrepreneurs. We actually have some investors in the chat as well, or in the call. And for those of you who'd like to get in contact with you, is there a best way of doing it? Obviously, we can facilitate introductions, or we prefer reaching out on other channels. What's the best way before we lose you, Jo?
Quite easy, Jo at talkingmedicines.com and Elizabeth at talkingmedicines.com. So we can put it in the chat.
There we go. I think we'll continue with the questions, but again, I'm super conscious your time's very valuable. And Jo, if you want to, we can let you go. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We think it's been a fantastic event so far. We will continue, but it's been absolutely excellent to have you with us. Thank you so much. And yeah, we'll send a Social Stories Club gift basket to the office in the coming days.
Thank you for having us. On behalf of Elizabeth and I know Elizabeth's staying. Scott's in the audience as well, so you can always call him out. No, brilliant. Thank you. We really appreciate the invite, and it's good to be part of the network. So sorry to rush, but thank you very much. Thanks
again, Jo. Thank you.
Thanks, Emma.
All right. On to, Alan, what we got next? If we'll wrap this up again. As I said, we've got a few extra questions. We've already got a few last ones in. Stay involved. I understand if you need to, if you want to head off, then you're more than welcome to as well. I think right this moment, I'm probably going to go and be a bit cheeky. I'm going to go grab a beer. But yeah, let's keep the questions coming. Alan, what's next?
Go for it. So there are some questions here that I know they've been answered already. So point it out if you noticed. Maybe Emma, maybe. I say, do you encrypt your users' personal information and collect data anonymously? That's like the top question here.
Yeah, so we do. We take care on how we store our data. We are a Microsoft startup partner, so we work with Microsoft to ensure that our data is safely and securely stored, and there's separation between data that we collect and process, and to data that we surface and present back to our customers.
Right, nice. So we can tick that one off. The next one on top, we've got the value to the user. What would be their motive to provide you with consistent and high quality data?
so that's more from the user perspective. Yeah, I think again, with regard to, we're very transparent on how we are, using and collecting the data, and they see the value. So, yeah, and we've got ways in which as well that we can kind of check the way in which data comes in. But I think it's, there will be a bias to our data, like all data sets, but I think through our tools that we have in place to monitor that, we try and really understand how the users are using it, so we can identify those true users to those that are maybe just kind of using it to test.
All righty. Now I'll bring in Emma as well to the chat, so it's not just me here asking all the questions and firing them out like one after another. So let's have a look, because we've got some extras coming out right now. And you can still add questions. We still have people in the chat, so you can still add your name and stuff, add your questions.
We'll take like 2 more, and then we'll look to wrap this up with some final words and what we got coming up next. And then we'll all go away and enjoy our Tuesday nights.
I'm interested to ask Scott if he's willing to.
Excellent.
Well, there, am I throwing you in the deep end there?
Scott will be grand.
Oh, he's asked to unmute.
Yeah.
I think you're on mute. Is that on purpose or just?
No, Emma, are you
there you go.
Yeah, you're good.
Oh, sorry, I still can't hear you. We're having a
technical challenges.
There we go. Sorry, it's worth the wait, though. It's worth the wait.
You caught me out just putting Jamie Oliver's chicken rose harissa tray bake into the oven. So brilliant timing. Thanks for that.
Sorry, Scott. Many apologies.
It wasn't compulsory.
That's very nice.
Very nice. I'll ping you the rest.
Scott, I'm interested to find out your kind of background as well. I've done a lot of reading on Jo's and Elizabeth's. I'm interested to see how you kind of got started with talking medicines as well.
You've been digging around.
I have been digging around, doing my homework.
So my background's in life sciences. So I'm actually a qualified veterinary surgeon from the Royal Dick from back in 1990, quite a time ago.
Dick Vet?
Yeah, the Dick Vet, yes, that's right. Yeah, back in the days when it used to be in town and not out in that fancy new £225 million place. I'm not bitter about it. And so I went through a fairly standard career as a veterinary surgeon, built up my kind of clinical acumen, speaking to patients, speak to clients, and their pets. And it's that communication thing that brought Jo and I initially together, was this feeling that actually I thought I was a good communicator, I was doing a good job in the practice, but actually people would go home and phone up 15 minutes later and speak to receptionists. What did he say? I don't understand. There's all these different medications. What am I meant to do with them? Was it 2 on a Thursday, 1 on Wednesday? When am I meant to be coming back? And realizing that actually communication happens for people in lots of different ways. And then I was involved with a company called Vets Now, who I think is known very well in the Scottish investment community.
Yeah,
did rather well out of that. And I was asked to be a board advisor in an NX kind of capacity to them, because I've got a lot of voice to talk about a lot of stuff. And I came up and I met Jo through Vets Now. She was working on a different product at that time, PetNet, which was over 100,000 pet consumers connected up through effectively like a Mum's Net type app and solution. And we got talking and we saw the opportunity to use digital. I'd done a lot of work with veterinary companies. I used to mentor about 14 veterinary practices and help them grow and develop their businesses. And I'd been a key opinion leader, speaking to people like Bayer, Boehringer Ingelheim, all the pharmaceutical companies. And I thought there's got to be something here that we can do. And this was 7 years ago. I mean, we're talking about the iPhone 3. That's how archaic our company now is. And we saw augmented reality, we saw engagement being one of the missing pieces in health, that we're not actually engaging with healthcare consumers. as we would do with people who consume anything else in their lives, apples, oranges, Coke, burgers, cars. Why can't we talk to people like people instead of having this terribly monotonous, hello, I'm a professional general practitioner, I'm going to talk to you about, and there had to be a way to kind of elevate that. And that's where the digital support programs kind of came from. And then the realization that this was a global problem, should be expanded, and that there were opportunities to capture data with new technology in, as Elizabeth has been expounding, a very transparent and open way, using data for good, but actually transforming, giving patients a real voice rather than, everyone talks about patient centricity, but sometimes it just means that patients at the center of the conversation that's going on round about them. But this way, the patient will have a real voice and be talking out and saying, actually, this is what I think about your products, this is what I think about your services, this is how you could make the product better, not just for me, but for everybody else who's kind of like me. So, so that's my 65 seconds.
65 seconds of counting issues here. No, that was really, really interesting. I didn't how it's all kind of come together. And in terms of founders of both yourselves with a lot of experience in life sciences, and I think a lot of other founders, you know, might have a fantastic idea, but it needs, you know, it's a tech company. Have you found yourself like, you know, managing to learn more about the very technical side as well, or is that, or you just enjoy, you know, hiring people that that's what they do?
Elizabeth's very good at the tech. No, you have to understand. I mean, it was interesting. I was listening to you right the way through. I have been here, I've not just been cooking. You know, the question about, you know, how you came to be an entrepreneur is quite strange. It's in your mid-40s to discover you're an entrepreneur by accident almost. But I've had to adapt and had to grow. I had to take kind of key competencies, if you like, communication, marketing, strategy. I did a lot of non-veterinary clinical work as well, and bring that to the table, but also be open to learning. Important things like working in an office, which I'd never done for 25 years. It's a strange environment to be in an open plan office. It's much more comfortable here in my own office in Oban. It's great, but don't tell me. And learning to work in a different way rather than being the kind of the team leader, but being part of a team and adapting my ways of working. Learning enough about the technology to not trip over my own tongue and say the wrong thing to the wrong person, but also bringing understanding. I've done a lot of work in the regulatory space in medicines, a lot of understanding about how medicines work. Veterinary medicines, human medicines are all developed from veterinary medicines. Everything gets trialed in animals beforehand. There's always a veterinary input, and pretty much anything you can give to a human being has been tried on animals. And we have that kind of breadth of understanding, the pharmacology kind of background, biochemistry kind of background. So bringing different aspects of my Dick Vet career and enterprise to the table, but then learning exciting new things. And it's great to have a midlife crisis right now and be learning about natural language processing. What is AI? How does AI really work? You know, what's the background? How do you train a machine to learn something? This is fascinating stuff. And bringing some kind of understanding about the kind of regulatory space and diving into GDPR. Some great questions about GDPR and how it really actually exploded for us, a huge opportunity. There were lots of people's opinions about what data protection was in the past, and there were European standards, British stuff, but GDPR actually said, this is what you must do. So take a deep breath, take a run at it and say, okay, this is how we're going to respond, and start to frame some of the questions around about to present to Elizabeth and her team to come up with the answers. Yeah, great to still be learning.
Yeah, no, I think that gives people a lot of confidence as well, especially, you know, jobs, the landscape's going to change a lot, and only now in the last 3 months, but, you know, it's been accelerated and people are going to have to.
And again, you know, if we can just butt in, now you're going to wish you'd never asked me to start talking.
Elizabeth's so grateful.
She's due her gin around about, also it's 10 minutes past gin time, Elizabeth.
I agree.
One of the questions about kind of the female founders, etc., and the thing is, for me, there's a cultural shift. We can all feel that cultural shift now. It's not just the Black Lives Matter and George Floyd, but the protests around about British history and reinventing our history. But we can feel that there's a cultural change happening. And one of the shocking things, which still only occurred to me a couple of years ago, I'm still part of the kind of the awakening, quite privileged, I guess, is there was a BBC 4 program on the radio about how when medicines are developed, during those randomized control trials, which everybody thinks, well, that means that all the patients are taking it as randomized. Well, they're not. The patients are chosen for that very sensitive trial. I've only got kind of one condition, or possibly two, as long as it doesn't interfere with the one that we're testing for, have to be in a certain age bracket, and you will not be surprised to learn are predominantly male and white. Because the outliers, which is a horrible word to use, in the BAME community, the female community, because women's hormones work differently to men's hormones, just means that the unpredictability there has not been something that the drug companies have chosen to manage. But now that we get access some of the tools, some of the nascent tools that we're developing, then those trials can become part of a longer, long-tail generational trial where we're tracking and monitoring safely and securely what is happening to patients taking those medications, not just from that core, but in other parts of the community, and giving those other parts of the community a voice. So it's a great part, it's a core part for me for our social mission, is actually enabling all those different parts of the community to have a voice, and really important to me to have female founders on the board. It is that thing, you know, I've been at several conferences with Elizabeth and Jo, we were sitting down, and it's only Elizabeth and Jo who are actually the females in the entire room. And you know, that is just fundamentally wrong. I mean, even just on a reactionary scale, you think, why is this? How can we change the way that we actually work and engage and communicate across our business?
Thanks. Sounds like you've got the perfect mix of, for the co-founders, all your experience. It's really, couldn't have got any better.
Well, we ain't perfect, but we'll do.
That's a startup mentality right there. Okay, I think if everyone's all right with it, I think we're going to wrap things up with some final couple of shout outs. Thanks very much, Scott, for joining us at the end. Let you get back to your chicken, of course.
Yeah, hope it's delicious.
And yeah, thank you everybody who's managed to stick around to the end. Thank you everyone that got involved in this call.